Hello everyone, today is 5th of March, now it's about 9 o'clock. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Later on today I will publish second news update on my Patreon and Boosty pages, and if you are looking for more news from Russia, more commentary, or if you like my work and want to support her, please consider to join our communities on Patreon or Boosty, where I have quite a lot of extra content on a regular basis. Although, dear friends, I have to apologize for our Patreon and Boosty community for absence of my second update yesterday. It's not necessarily my fault. I prepared the program, went to city. I was planning to make a second update in the walk and talk style, but unfortunately it was raining, and I wait for quite a time, about 2 hours, just walk around, get wet, but rain didn't stop, and because I don't have a waterproof microphone, I just had no option but to come back home, and it was already too late to set up this improvised studio and start recording. So my apologies, sometimes it happens for technical or other reasons. I'm unable to make second updates, but whenever I can, I definitely do my best to have these second updates on Patreon and Boosty. And well, that's been said, let's go through some news now. And first of all, short summary of the situation on the line of contact. We have reports that Russian armed forces, as a result of local scale offensive operations, established control over the Privolnaya settlement, and clearing operation is underway, which this is South Donetsk sector of the front line, of course. Also, big developments happening on Pokrovsk direction. According to reports, Russian armed forces almost finalized clearing operation in Andreevka settlement, and according to latest reports, this settlement is also under full Russian control. Of course, this is a big deal because it seems like this Andreevka fortified area that Kiev regime had in this direction is completely neutralized at this point. But this is not all. According to latest reports, Russian armed forces, as a result of local scale offensive operations, further improved positions in the Kursk salient area and established control over the Lokhnya settlement on the northern western part of Kursk salient, and also Russian troops established control over the Kurilovka settlement on the southern eastern part of this salient. Significant progress of the Russian armed forces. And as you can see, dear friends, this Kursk salient is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking on daily basis. And well, seems like my prediction definitely is correct, and it's only a matter of a couple of weeks, and this trap will be completely closed, and Kiev regime forces will either withdraw from this area. Kiev regime forces and NATO mercenaries will either withdraw from this area into a Sumy region, or they will just have no option but to either fight before bitter end or to lay down arms and surrender. And also, dear friends, overnight, early hours of this morning, Russian armed forces conducted quite a large-scale, long-range, precise strikes on military and logistics infrastructure of the Kiev regime. There was a series of explosions in Odessa region, also inside Odessa itself, in the port area, in some other places. Also, reports are coming in about explosions in many other directions that are still controlled by terrorist regime of Zelensky, including Kiev and the Kiev region itself. I guess some significant casualties and losses Kiev regime did talk as a result of these strikes, and potentially NATO mercenaries too, because as I already said, there was massive explosions in Odessa, and as we know, dear friends, Odessa usually used as a transportation hub and a center for operations for long-range strikes, maritime operations, or the long-range drone strikes. And it's a British intelligence and military personnel that is overseeing these operations, right? So therefore, potentially during the day we will receive information that as a result of these long-range strikes, foreign mercenaries, as they are classified, were neutralized also. That's been said, let's go through some other news. And RT is reporting that Trump once again, President of US Donald Trump once again spoke about Ukrainian crisis, this time during his address to Congress, a joint session of the Congress that took place yesterday evening. And so let's go through this news. US President Donald Trump has affirmed that he is determined to broker ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia. He stressed the importance of ending hostilities during the address to a joint session of Congress on Tuesday evening. Millions of Ukrainians and Russians have been needlessly killed or wounded in this horrific and brutal conflict with no end in sight, he said, adding that he has been working tirelessly to bring about the truth. Trump emphasized that while people being killed in the conflict are not Americans, he wants the bloodshed to stop. It's a time to end senseless war. If you want to end wars, you have to talk to both sides, Trump said. He criticized US allies in Europe, claiming that they are spending more money on buying Russian energy than on assistance to Kiev. He also claimed that American funding of Ukraine has been disproportionately high, considering that the conflict poses a relatively small risk to the US. We have also a quote here: United States has sent hundreds of billions of dollars to support Ukraine's defense. You want to keep it going for another 5 years? He asked the audience. The speech came just days after Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky had a heated exchange with Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance at the White House. So yes, Trump spoke about Ukrainian crisis. He spoke about many other topics, by the way. Obviously, his speech mainly was addressed to Americans, right? And the topics were ones that would be interested mainly for his fellow citizens. But yes, I mean, he spoke about Ukrainian crisis also. And you know what I find quite frustrating? He repeatedly says that Europeans should spend more money. In one hand, he is talking about peace, and in the other hand, he is calling European states to spend more money on this proxy war against Russia. So which one is Donald Trump? Are you for peace? And if so, why you are calling Europeans to spend more money and send more weapons? Because that would not help no peace, right? So some contradiction here, in my personal opinion. But anyways, I guess this topic also used by U.S. leadership to take shots at European elites, because clearly there is some tension between Washington and European capitals, isn't it? Meanwhile, as you know, dear friends, I reported about it yesterday in the first update. According to reports, US suspended military aid deliveries to Kiev regime. We have this report here on a topic in the US. I mean, the consequences of the suspension of the US military assistance to Ukraine will be felt for the armed forces of Ukraine, possibly in a few days or the weeks, CNN reported, citing US officials. It will take some time, perhaps several days or weeks, for the consequences of the US suspension of the military assistance to become noticeable among the Ukrainian military, the publication is stating. And Kremlin was asked, by the way, about this decision of White House, and a press spokesman of the Russian president said that, well, one thing is the statements or the information that is published in media, usually based on some sources, and a whole different story is real steps, real actions, and therefore Moscow will wait to have confirmed information about this topic and many other topics. That's a usual practice, understandably so. But he also stressed that stopping aid to Ukraine will be the best contribution of the United States to their cause of the peace. And he is absolutely correct. Without Western military and financial assistance, obviously this conflict would not last this long. It would be end, and without Western interference, by the way, it would end in 2022. And there was first steps in these directions, isn't it? When talks took place between Moscow and Kiev in Istanbul. We all remember that, but those talks and preliminary agreements then were derailed due to intervention of UK's and US leaderships, right? We all know Boris Johnson went into Kiev to derail these talks between Moscow and Kiev. And also, according to reports, head of CIA went to Kiev for very same reason, and officials from Pentagon too. So, well, without Western interference, by the way, as I said, this conflict, first of all, would not even start if US did not orchestrate coup d'etat in 2014, for example. But anyways, we are now where we are, and currently in current situation, obviously, if US truly made the decision to stop military aid to Zelensky's terrorist regime, that would be obviously a great contribution to the peace. And on this topic, by the way, Polish leadership confirmed information that there are no more transfers of the weapons through Poland, from Poland to Ukraine. Reports from the Polish-Ukrainian border confirmed the suspension of American supplies to the armed forces of Ukraine. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said before government meeting, so at least indirect confirmation. I don't believe no statements from nobody, right? Definitely not from Polish leadership, but at least we can take this statement as an indirect indicator that maybe this information is correct and the US really suspended their military aid to Kiev regime. On this very topic, also we have this report that suspension of military aid to Kiev mainly concerns armored vehicles. I would not agree with this report necessarily, but let's go through this news first. The suspension of the transfer of military aid to Kiev, which according to some media reports, United States went to, mainly affected armored vehicles. ABC News reported, citing two US officials, the aid that was on the way was mostly armored vehicles that took time to repair and prepare. They say, according to these sources, United States has already transferred some 90% of their military aid agreed upon under the previous US administration to Ukraine. These packages include a large number of critical military equipment and anti-tank systems such as Javelin anti-tank systems. The officials added, and well, obviously, if this information is correct and the US is no longer, at least for now, transferring weapons and munition to Kiev regime, obviously this will affect armored vehicles too, infantry fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers, other type of armored vehicles, but also obviously a lot of munition was transferred to Kiev regime, a lot of other weapon systems, right? And therefore, I would disagree with ABC News that it's mainly about armored vehicles. No, it's not. Kiev regime forces are operating nowadays quite in large scale with, for example, US-made rifles, right? They need bullets for those rifles. And if bullets are no longer coming in, then that's the issue for the Kiev regime, right? Motors, by the way, or artillery systems also are US made, so therefore they need munition from US for that, mainly from US. European states can provide some volume of munition, but hardly they'll be able to compensate loss of volume that US can provide. But anyways, we have also this report that Ukraine will use up its US weapons reserves in 2 to 3 months, Kiev regime's forces may feel a lack of some weapon systems, some munition in next several days, several weeks, if this suspension holds. But US already delivered so much weapons and so much ammunition that will most likely last several months, at least according to Financial Times. Meanwhile, obviously, this information, by the way, about a suspension of US weapons deliveries did upset many so-called elites in many representatives of the so-called elites in Europe, and especially in Poland, by the way, because there were reports that Polish leadership had no idea that US was planning to suspend weapons deliveries. But anyways, very same European so-called elites now are intensifying their calls for Zelensky regime, this terrorist regime in Kiev, and the US administration to resume talks. And for example, Polish leadership went as far as to say that a dialogue between the two sides already has started. So work is already underway to resume negotiations between the United States and Ukraine. Polish President Andrzej Duda said at the briefing following his visit to New York. Now there is a process that is moving in the direction of negotiations so that they can return, so that they can be implemented again. I believe that these are elements of a certain way of doing things in this matter so far. I am calmly observing this all through. I am sorry that American aid has been suspended for the time being to the stated. And on this topic of talks between Zelensky's terrorist regime and the White House, we also have this report that Zelensky offers to sign US deal and skips apologies. So Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky has offered to sign a rare earth deal with the US following disastrous meeting at the White House last week, which scuttled their agreement. However, he did not apologize as demanded by some American officials. And then we have a quote here: "Our meeting in Washington at the White House on Friday did not go the way it was supposed to be," Zelensky wrote in an X post on Tuesday. And he said that he is sad that this meeting did not went according to plan, if there was any plans in place, but he did not directly apologize, that's for sure. "It is time to make things right," he said, adding that Ukraine is ready to sign the agreement on minerals in any time and in any convenient format. Okay. On very same topic, the US Treasury Department said that there is no new date for signing the agreement with Kiev. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that there is no new date for signing the agreement with Kiev on joint development of Ukrainian mineral resources. He said this during his talk with Fox TV channel. And if still, by the way, if Kiev regime and Washington are going to sign this deal, that will upset London big time, isn't it? That will upset London and some other European states. France, by the way, for example, many people did not pay much attention, but maybe to this. But London had some 100-year agreement with Kiev regime recently signed, isn't it? And obviously, London would love to use this agreement as an opportunity to grab whatever they can grab in Kiev-controlled territory. And France, by the way, was also actively working with Kiev regime to have agreements about rare earth exactly. And if still US will go ahead and force Zelensky to sign an agreement and transfer rights one way or another on some rare earth or whatever other resources on Kiev-controlled territory to US, this is going to be a big blow for European so-called elites. But you know what is even more interesting? we all understand, dear friends, at least majority of us, that once this conflict will end, the maximum what Western ruling class will be in charge of is a Western Ukraine, right? Which will eventually be claimed, most likely will be claimed by Poland, Hungary, Romania, potentially even by Slovakia and Bulgaria, by the way, right? But the rest of the territory will either join Russia from Kharkov to Odessa regions, for example. Kharkov, Dnipropetrovsk, Zaporozhye, Nikolaev, Odessa regions. I mean, this is have to join Russia, by the way. This is a historical Russian land, obviously, as the entire rest of the territories of this former Soviet Republic, with the exception of, let's say, Western Ukraine. And there is a slight chance that Kiev and surrounding areas might maintain statehood if Moscow would agree on that, although I don't really understand why would Moscow agree on that. But anyways, outside of Western Ukraine, all this area will be directly or indirectly controlled by Moscow. So therefore, what difference it makes for US or the very same European elites to sign whatever agreements with Zelensky's regime, when they should know perfectly well that it's not the Kiev regime that's going to be in charge of these areas, by the way, right? Days of this Nazi terrorist Kiev regime is numbered, right? So I truly don't understand why it's so much buzz is around this topic of rare earth and agreements with the Zelensky's regime. It's some nonsensical stuff, by the way. It's some nonsensical stuff is happening here, right? If Washington did talk with Moscow, that would make sense, right? Because if it comes to rare earth, I mean, Russia is Russia is the richest country with natural resources in this world. According to some reports, Russia has these riches for some 75 to 100 trillion, right? Possibly even more, because there are plenty of areas in Russia where humans did not even step yet, right? So if Washington will talk to Moscow about future cooperation in certain directions, rare earth or energy or whatever, that would make sense. I mean, European elites are out of conversation because I don't think Moscow should ever talk to them, really, due to their extremism, right? But I definitely don't understand why so much buzz is around the current regime in Kiev and some rare earth that Kiev regime don't really has. All these assets, yes, there are some assets, by the way, on Kiev-controlled territory or on the territory of this former Soviet Republic. Majority of these areas are already liberated by Russian forces, but there are some assets, some deposits in other areas also. But what do you think? Why during the Soviet Union or after Soviet Union was collapsed, these areas were not worked out for this rare earth? Maybe because it's not viable economically, financially. You know, just because there is some deposits in certain areas does not necessarily means that it's worth do some heavy investments and start mining and working on those deposits, because it may not work out. You will spend more than you will gain, right? But anyways, and many experts, by the way, geologists are saying that all this buzz around this rare earth in so-called Ukraine does not make no sense at all, right? And I tend to believe geologists, by the way, that know better about what is in and what is not there in the ground in Kiev-controlled territory than politicians do. Anyways, as I already said, dear friends, European elites continue to demonstrate how extremist and out of touch with reality they are. And for example, yesterday, Ursula Bursula washing machine come up with some yet another crazy statements that they want to create some 800 billion fundraising for military industrial complex for rearm European Union or NATO members from Europe. 150 billion is going to be credits for the EU member states to invest in weapons production, and another 650 billion should be taken from the public as a taxes, right? Ursula Bursula wants defense spending across the EU to increase at least by 1.5%, which will generate, according to her, this additional 650 billion. And combined with this 100 billion credit fund, it will make this 800 billion that's supposed to, help EU countries to significantly increase their spendings on military, industrial complex, weapons production, which will then, according to her, allow Brussels to more effectively support her Kiev regime, right? And this is nonsense, obviously. This is all just crazy talk on part of this psychopath that formally is in charge of EU, because very same people, by the way, very same institution is struggling to come up with even 20 billion, right? We have, for example, this report that the European Union has suspended the development of their military aid package to Ukraine in the amount of 20 billion euros, writes Politico. The direct reference to the organization of new deliveries of military aid to Ukraine proposed by the chief of European diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, was removed from the document of decisions of the EU Council submitted to representatives of the EU countries for consideration. So while EU is struggling to come up with 20 billion, Ursula Bursula is talking about some 800 billion. I mean, this is if this is not crazy stuff, by the way, if this is not a demonstration that the so-called elites in Europe are truly insane, then I don't know what could be, isn't it? Let's continue anyways, and we have a quite interesting report from RIA Novosti about statements of Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, according to which the European totalitarian liberal elite fears a conservative turn of Europe under the influence of Trump after the attack on Romanian presidential contender calling Georgescu new attempts to suppress dissent in the EU can be predicted. The press bureau of the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service stated European totalitarian liberal elite is clearly afraid of a conservative turn of Europe under the influence of Trump. In an effort to prevent such a scenario, Brussels is not shy about funds and their means to do their dirty job. After the attack on Georgescu in Romania, we can confidently predict new attempts by the European liberal mainstream to suppress dissent in the EU opposition, let's say, in the EU. Their primary goal will be Hungary as a bastion of European conservatism, and their upcoming parliamentary elections in the country next year will be convenient occasion, the report said. So, well, Hungary should get ready, by the way. I believe Russian Foreign Intelligence Service has reasons to believe that Hungary is about to be attacked big time by this totalitarian, these globalists, by the way, those the neoliberal fascist globalists, right, that are mainly in charge in modern Europe. And I guess current leadership of Hungary knows about it. Maybe Russian and the Hungarian intelligence services even are sharing information to make sure that Hungary will withstand this assault that is definitely coming towards their way from Brussels. Meanwhile, RT is reporting that US and Russia made a deal on Iran talks, according to top aide of the Russian president. Washington and Moscow decided to hold separate talks centered on Iran during the last month high-level negotiations in Riyadh. Russian President Vladimir Putin's foreign policy aide Yuri Ushakov has stated senior US and Russian officials met in Saudi Arabia on Friday, in February, in the first major talks between the two superpowers since the escalation of the Ukraine conflict in 2022. We have quote here, we discussed the situation around Iran, yes, and we agreed to hold separate talks on this matter, Ushakov told the press on Tuesday when asked about Western media reports that to that effect. No set date for the talks has been agreed as of yet, he added, but yes, some Western media outlets reported that Moscow and Washington did agree, or Washington did ask basically Moscow during those talks in Riyadh in February for assistance to work around Iran's nuclear program to de-escalate, and Moscow agree. And why would not Moscow would agree? Because we know that Iran is not working on nuclear weapon systems. Iran itself says a million times that they don't need nuclear weapons, right? And obviously it is counterproductive if Iran will acquire nukes, because all the other regional countries will start a race to have a nukes also, which will jeopardize Iran's security greatly, right? And Moscow, which has a great relationships with Iran, probably will do its best to bring these two sides closer to each other so that they will talk and resolve whatever issues they have. And obviously this will minimize the risk that Israel will go ahead with its declared plans, declared by some radical officials there, that a strike should take place on Iran's nuclear facilities, right? So some good developments here. And as I said many times before, by the way, it is necessary superpowers to talk. In this particular case, US and Russia to be in talks, because there are so many issues that world is facing that can be resolved as a result of cooperation of these major nuclear superpowers, right? Including in the Middle East and obviously in many other parts of this world. And dear friends, before I continue, let me notice, if I may, that this small media project of mine is completely subscriber funded. And if you like my work, if you like my channels, if you think I deserve to be in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support this project and my work with donation through PayPal or Boosty platforms, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. All the links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment, including crypto address. And right now you can see on your screen, dear friends, my Twitter X page. And if you are active on Twitter, please consider to join our community on Twitter. Also, recently I become quite active, and our community on Twitter is more than 1,500 now. And dear friend, you can also join us on Telegram channel. I have a lot of posts on both platforms, by the way, on Twitter and Telegram, and it is a good addition. I believe it is a good addition and reserve line of communication for us and for this main channels, video updates. Anyways, let's continue, dear friends. And Glad newspaper is reporting that foreign minister of Japan get upset because he was bound to visit Russia for life. So Japanese foreign minister Takeshi Awaya expressed disagreement with Moscow's decision to ban him from entering the Russia. Japanese foreign minister called the ban on his entry to Russia unacceptable, stating their need to maintain a dialogue with the Russian side, reports TASS. He also stressed that their communication remains an important element of bilateral relations. Oh, really? You just now remember that, isn't it? But when very same person, by the way, and some other psychopaths in Japanese leadership were pushing for more escalation with Russia, more sanctions on Russia, more hostile steps towards Russia, what they were thinking at that point. Now, this person is dead as a politician because he is banned from entering Russia forever, and therefore, he is finished. He just simply finished, especially if you take in account that Japan and Russia has quite a number of issues to resolve, and sometime in the future, definitely talks have to resume, isn't it? Including on a peace agreement, by the way, between the two. Many people in this world may not know that there was no peace deal between Soviet Union and Japan after Second World War ended. And because Russia is successor of the Soviet Union, there is no peace treaty in place between Russia and Japan too. And sides for many years were working on this peace treaty, but it went nowhere due to, yet again, inadequate policies and inadequate positions of the Japanese leadership. They have to learn where their place is really, these Japanese psychopaths, right, that call themselves leaders of their Japan. And until they will learn their place, I guess there will be no progress in whatever talks might take place between Moscow and Tokyo. It is what it is, man. Meanwhile, RIA Novosti is reporting that China is imposing tariffs on nearly 22 billion worth of US goods. So Beijing imposed their duties on agricultural goods from the United States worth 22 billion, according to calculations by RIA Novosti, according to the Chinese customs. So data for in total, Chinese tariffs affected the US supplies by 21.9 billion, of which 3.4 billion will fall under their 15% duty, and 18.5 billion will fall under their 10% duty. And this is, of course, retaliatory measures from China, because US imposed, I believe, 20%, 20 or 25% tariffs on Chinese goods, number of Chinese goods. So trade war or tariffs war has again escalated between US and China. But well, this is not all, by the way. You should see what is happening between US and Mexico and US and Canada, by the way. Canadian outgoing Prime Minister Trudeau went full crazy mode yesterday and start threatening US. He imposed also tariffs on US for 155 billion. And Mexico will follow suit, obviously. And well, even though, by the way, let's be real here, even though some strong statements been made in Mexico and Canada, and in Canada, they are on losing side here. Because what will happen is that US might further increase tariffs. US president already said that US will double the tariffs that Mexico and or Canada will impose on US. And eventually what will happen is that companies, manufacturers in Canada and Mexico will have no option, if they want to survive, but to allocate their logistics, allocate their manufacturing plants into US. That's their main reason why Trump is initiating these tariff wars against Mexico and Canada, and also against Europe, by the way. This will not work with China, but it will work with Mexico, Canada, and Europe, and it already does, by the way. US policies for the last number of years clearly are directed to further intensify the industrialization of the Europe, the industrialization of the Canada and Mexico, and reindustrialization of the US on expense of these countries. And this is happening. This is happening. So US definitely is in a better position than this EU, for example, or Canada or Mexico. Although, as I already said, these tactics will not work with China, because Chinese businesses I mean, production in China costs so much less than in US that Chinese companies can easily absorb, I guess, these are 15, 20, 25, or even 50% of tariffs, I guess, and they will still make significant profits. So yes, China is in a better place in this regard. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that, well, very same China to increase military budget by 7.2% in 2025. So China will increase its military budget by 7.2% in 2025 to 1.784 trillion yuan, which is about 245 billion US dollars, little more on the current exchange rate. National defense spending will amount to 1.78465 billion yuan, which is 7.2% increase. The document released on the opening day of the annual session of the National People's Congress said, well, this is significant. Obviously, this is significant. Chinese military budget is increasing on regular basis, year-on-year terms, and well, 245 billion US dollars in Chinese case probably can due to significant differences between US and China, for example, in terms of purchasing power parity. This 245 billion in China probably amounts to some 500 billion, 600 billion in terms of US, for example. So China is almost leveling its military spendings with US, by the way, and they can afford it. I mean, they can afford it. And I just posted on my Telegram and Twitter X page, by the way, statement from Chinese embassy in the US in regards to confrontation with the United States. And look what this comment says. If war is what the US wants, be it tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we are ready to fight till their end. So Beijing is not backing down, by the way. Beijing is preparing, and it is, I mean, China is definitely in a position to secure itself. I mean, they have money, they have technology, they have resources. They have a strategical partner, Russia, that can assist her in many ways, and cooperation is increasing, right? China is a BRICS member state. And so, yes, China definitely is in a position to stand stronger and face their whatever US can come up with against Chinese People's Republic. Let's hope it will not come to a true, I mean, real military war. It will end on these tariff wars and stuff, but who knows? Who knows, man? In any case, China is clearly preparing, and the military spending of China demonstrates that, isn't it? And by the way, while I did open my Telegram, let me show you, for example, this video. This is a US MQ-9 Reaper drone that was intercepted by Yemeni Houthi rebels. This is our first such incident since Trump's was elected, and who knows, by the way, we know how Trump behaves. When he is briefed that Yemeni Houthi shut down US drone, he might authorize some additional strikes on Yemen, and probably that's what he will do. And also, dear friends, I want to focus your attention on this development. I was really kind of surprised to see this. For example, let me open this video and just listen to it, by the way.
Do you want to condemn Ukraine over praising were collaborators like Bandera with the Nazis and was responsible for so many Jews that were killed.
Who said that?
About Bandera or about what?
Yeah, the quote you.
That's Yad Vashem. That's the records there.
First of all, we condemned each statement like that, but I hadn't heard.
Question I didn't finish. They renamed the streets, even the street, the boulevard going to the Babi Yar that you know, of course, in the name of Bandera, the one that was responsible for the Babi Yar. And also the monuments of the Red Army, they're taking them down and they're putting monuments of Bandera, Evich, and Israel says nothing about that for years now.
First of all, I didn't know about it. I will check it, and you know that. You probably know that. Probably know that because you asked that. But it's your knowledge. That's clear. But we will check it, and if there is a necessity, we will publish a condemnation. No problem about it. I want to check it. We'll do that. Yeah. I think that we have a commitment to the memory of the Holocaust. We have a commitment to battle against anti-Semitism, phenomena of neo-Nazis, Holocaust denial, and this is very important to us. So I will instruct to check it, and if it is necessary, we'll condemn it, no doubt.
Well, I hope sound was okay there on video. And what you will say, dear friends. This is Israeli foreign minister that was confronted, Gideon Saar, that was challenged actually, which is a quite rare occasion nowadays, isn't it? When these high-ranking officials in a collective West, and Israel is a part of collective West, obviously, are challenged. And he was challenged, how come that Israel is not condemning heroization of their Nazi collaborators, Ukrainian neo-Nazis that killed hundreds of thousands of innocent people during their Second World War, mainly in Western Ukraine. And you hear what he says, isn't it? That he has no idea that there is a heroization of the Nazis in Ukraine, like Bandera, Shukhevich, and the rest of them. And this is foreign minister of Israel is speaking, by the way. How despicable this individual is, and how despicable all the other leaders of Israel are, that they say nothing, literally nothing, about heroization of the Nazis and the fascist elements in Ukraine. When there is, you will struggle to find a settlement, big or small settlement, city or town or village in so-called Ukraine, where there is no street of on the name of Bandera or the Shukhevich or some other collaborators of the Nazi Germany. And foreign minister of Israel is saying that he has no idea about it. And those Nazis, by the way, those Ukraine Nazis, they were killing everybody. Hundreds of thousands of Poles, Russians, Jewish people, Belarusians, they were killing everybody, by the way. And they were so brutal. According to declassified information, by the way, these Ukrainian Nazis under the leadership of Bandera and Shukhevich were so brutal in the actions that even officers of the SS, can you imagine that? Even officers of German SS formations that were most brutal formations in the Third Reich, even officers from that SS formations were complaining to Berlin about actions of these Banderites. But because Banderites were collaborating with the SS and with Nazi Germany, they were free to do whatever they wanted. And even SS officers were horrified by their actions of these Banderites. And those people are heroized in modern Ukraine. Monuments being erased for them. Streets are named after them. Parks, universities, faculties on the universities, and all that stuff. And Israeli foreign minister is, without any shame, is saying in public that he don't know about it. Nothing. And he will ask some investigation to be held, man. How despicable this individual is, man, and entire leadership of Israel, man. And by the way, Maria Zakharova, official representative of Russian Foreign Ministry, responded on these statements or this reaction of the Foreign Minister of Israel, and she wrote her, what the Israeli embassy in Kiev doing then, and in Moscow too, for that matter. What these embassies of Israel in Kiev and Moscow are doing if Israeli foreign minister is openly in public saying that he has no idea that there is a Nazis glorification happening in Kiev-controlled territory. What the hell, man? What a disgrace. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. I'm telling you. Anyways, that's the world, by the way. That's the world that we are living right now. Meanwhile, to continue, dear friends, this update, RIA Novosti is reporting that Switzerland expands sanctions list against Russia. So much for neutrality, isn't it? Holy moly, man. Why Switzerland? Why you are destroying your neutral status and your future? I have no idea, but it is what it is. Switzerland followed the EU, added 48 individuals and 35 legal entities to its sanction list against Russia as a part of 16th package of sanctions, according to statement published on the website of the country's Federal Council. That's about it when it comes to Switzerland, by the way. All we need to know about Swiss neutrality, it's total nonsense, right, at this point, which is quite unfortunate, really. Swiss people did benefit greatly due to neutrality of their Switzerland, but well, because Switzerland is no longer neutral, I guess this country and its residents will face consequences for that for years and years to come, and in a couple of decades time, I guess Switzerland will no longer enjoy current level of living standards, which was purely based on profits that Switzerland was making due to its neutrality. But anyways, I hope Swiss people will wake up and deal with this issue. But chances for that is like slim to none. Anyways, RIA Novosti is also reporting that Starbucks registered its trademark in Russia, trademarks actually, several of them. So the company Starbucks registered their trademark in Russia, found out RIA Novosti, having studied the database of the Rospatent. The application was submitted to agency on May 23rd, 2024, and Rospatent made a positive decision on registration. Starbucks Corporation is listed as their applicant in the documents, and yes, I read some other sources also, and they registered several trademarks in Russia, and I guess as many other Western companies, Starbucks is also preparing to come back to Russian market as fast as they can whenever window will open for that. But this company is gonna struggle, by the way. This company is gonna struggle on Russian market, including Starbucks, because they were replaced quite effectively. Many of these Western companies, or companies from the collective West, that was making billions, tens of billions, and hundreds of billions in Russian market, they've been replaced quite effectively by local businesses and by businesses from friendly nations. And if and when they will come back, well, they're gonna find it extremely difficult to reestablish themselves and to regain trust of their community, of their customers that they betray while fleeing Russia due to some ideological and politicized reasons. TASS news agency, meanwhile, is reporting that gas reserves in European storage facilities dropped below 38%, first time in last 36 months. So natural gas reserves in European underground gas storage facilities plunged below 38% for the first time in 3 years, according to Gas Infrastructure Europe data, their net offtake difference between their offtake and their injection volumes totaled about 63.7 billion cubic meters from their start of their heating season. And this is a big issue, obviously. This is a big issue because for 2025-2026 winter season, European states may manage to fill up these underground gas storage facilities. I guess at least so much so that they will manage to deal with their next heating season, but that's about it. That's about it. I guess from 2026-2027 winter, energy crisis is going to be constant. Constant issue that European Union will be, forced to deal with. Obviously, if Brussels will not change its policies and EU member states, and if they will not start if they not lift sanctions on Russia, and if they did not start cooperating with Russia, again, without Russia, well, give it another year or two, and energy crisis is gonna become extremely severe in Europe. That's for sure. And this is it for now. Hopefully you will find this relatively long update informative and interesting. And if so, please click that like button, leave some commentary just about anything, dear friends. This is the only way we can try at least to influence algorithm. And please share information about my videos or my channel with your friends. And finally, if you like my work, if you like my channels, and if you want to support, you can do it through several means. All the links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care.